out of dozens of group across the organization that really focus on different areas of the technology that we work. So I've been working in IT for 30 years, and I've got 2 kids that grew up to work in highly technical fields. One works in cloud security. The other one is a nuclear engineer in the US Navy. They're very different areas of technology, but it gives you an idea of the spectrum out there. It's not quite as new. Technology and the foundations of it aren't that new. The binary language was invented by Simon Leibniz, and this is what his name looks like in Simon looks like in binary. The base level of the computer is just like on-off. It's very, very simple. But that simple type of language was in use almost 4,000 years ago in communications. Very much like Morse code. Morse code is also a binary type language. Boolean logic, which is also something you'll hear about around computers, it's the stuff you learned in the first year of school. Plus, greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to, what they call comparison operators. He just categorized that as a way of creating frameworks for making decisions. And that becomes the underlying, when you're looking for search criteria, for example, whether you realize it or not, you're using Boolean logic. The system beneath you is using Boolean logic. There it is. That's the electronic numerator, integrator, and computer. It is in the Smithsonian now.
So that's the machine you were talking about.
And yes, you can see
No?
how large that is. Easily the size of this. Actually, I think the room's a little bigger.
It's a little bit different.
There's your Geek Squad from 1946. All those they're called transistors. Or tubes. They're all the little electronic tubes that were plugged in. Gives you an idea on just how fast technology is changing. In 1956 to 1960, you had black and white TV going into homes. By the end of the 1960s, it was a big deal to own a color television set. And it was in this piece of furniture, and the screens were never more than that big, if you were lucky. 40 years ago, mobile phones were the size, mobile phone setup was the size of your backpack. And there was very little, you had a lot of dead zones. You really almost had to be standing in a specific space to get reception. But then you go back in the last 20 years, and you went from 8-tracks to CDs to DVD, and then to DVDs. Computers were out. When my first computer, I had 2 discs. I put 1 disc in, that was the operating system, and the second disc was the application. And that's what you used. Now you take another thing was if there was when the internet was first out there and available for public use, it was slow. It's funny because what you would define as slow is lightning fast compared to back then. You'd say, okay, I want to go to such and such a web site. You type that in, then you go have breakfast. Maybe by the time you get back, most of the page would be loaded. That was how slow it was. Again, you put it in now, and if the screen doesn't change like that, it's like, what is taking so long? So it's shrinking. In the 1960s, a couple examples of what technology has enabled us to do. Our technology back when we put a man on the moon was so basic that your pocket calculator has more technology than it. The guidance computer that helped guide us to the moon and back. Okay, you have your toaster oven at home, has more technology. Voyager. You see the photographs coming back from a satellite that was launched 60 years ago now to send through space. Your smartphone's got 240,000 times more memory than that. And the energy used for the transmitter that sends those pictures back, that make it to the online media and television now and then, yeah, it's less energy than a refrigerator bulb. So we were able to use very, very basic technology to do some amazing things. And you've got more than that in the palm of your hands when you're holding your cell phone. So what do you want to do with tech? You've got, how many of you have ever been to a hospital and seen all the machines and the beeping and, okay. Healthcare. What you see here, you're monitoring, you might be monitoring oxygenation of the blood, you might be monitoring pulse, blood pressure. All that can be wired up, and if something goes wrong, it's not a matter of the patient waiting for the nurse to come in if they can't hit the call button themselves. They're alerted. They can go in, they can say, hey, the patient in room 206 needs attention now. And is it a nurse that they need attention? They can tell us if things start going bad quickly, they can immediately bring in a rapid response team. How many of you have Fitbits? Or parents have Fitbits? Okay.
My aunt.
Okay. That was one that's almost a fad technology. I mean, people have adopted it.
Too expensive.
Yeah.
It's most, I would imagine, most of you are fairly active. But for adults who are sitting in desks and working long hours or not paying attention, they're busy driving back and forth, maybe picking you up and taking you somewhere. This helps them to gauge their level of activity. Now, my daughter's 30 years old, and she has one of those. I talked to her on the phone one night, and she said, she's talking about her Fitbit, and she says, my Fitbit just went off. It says I should start to wind down to go to sleep. He said, your Fitbit tells you that it's time to get ready for bed. He said, what is it, an electronic mommy? I mean, but it also tells her, she says, well, according to my Fitbit, I had a good night's sleep. Okay, some people, but this is the kind of technology that it can do if we have, just by wearing it on your wrist, you can monitor that. Let me go around the room real quick. Can each of you name like your favorite piece of technology or what interests you most about technology? What devices, what area? Start back in there.
I'm not really sure.
Okay. All of it?
Yeah.
Like computer or phone or.
Computers.
Okay.
I mean, the computers of that. Check.
Okay, so
Projector.
I feel like I want to tinker with
the
it.
visual. Okay.
I guess video game consoles.
Okay. Okay.
Xbox, okay.
The Xbox, the law with those. Yeah. Okay.
Just computer. I don't know, it's a toaster. Oh,
You like the smart
Nice.
toaster?
yeah.
Computer.
Okay.
I guess like a computer, like how like amps work or something. Like
Okay.
amps for your phones and stuff.
Oh, all right. So the gaming elements. We'll get to that in just a moment. Another thing you can do with tech is analyze data. So those, if you're working on the computer and you have to bring in a large amount of data, you can actually go through and you can use that Boolean logic and sort out and categorize data quickly. At any rate, no matter what you like to do with computers, there's technology careers that are looking for you. We are so underserved that we don't have enough people doing technology right now. And I'm going to go through a whole different list of areas in technology, but people don't have the training. So if this is something you're considering, it's a very broad landscape. You've got games, okay? There are always gaming companies out there because people like to be entertained and they need people to write. But games are being used for more than just leisure entertainment. when we want people to try something new, and we want them to follow a healthcare protocol, we're helping somebody manage diabetes or a heart condition or asthma. We have people that are out there that will write games that people can play as they take steps to help manage their health, and they can get points and little rewards for them and labels. Sites that do travel, such as TripAdvisor, will give you badges for the number of sites you review on, whether it's a hotel or a tourist attraction. They will give you, and they'll give you comparison points with other people in your area. And what that is the type of gaming that encourages people to play. Got virtual reality. How many of you have ever used a virtual reality device? Okay. In addition to, did you use it for mostly entertainment? Just to do something cool, play a game? Yep.
Can I have a question?
Sure.
I feel like there's two different kinds of virtual reality. One that's like really expensive, and the one that you just take your phone and slip in the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how was the one with the box you slid in? How is that virtual reality?
Okay, it's streaming it out in most cases. You're going somewhere and you're bringing it in. I would imagine with the more expensive device that you're
Like
talking
VR.
about. Yeah, that you're talking about, you'd have difference in resolution, you might have difference in sound delivery. But now I'm going to ask you, think of something outside of just entertainment. What could this do to benefit someone? Sure.
I kind of read this from a magazine, but they're actually doing virtual reality for people who cannot see.
You're right. If you
But
remember,
they're like $500,000.
that was, it's funny because that concept was actually introduced in a Star Trek series. Is anybody familiar with a character named Geordi? Okay. He had the virtual, he was blind and he had the virtual, okay. Our science fiction, and our imagination in film and the arts has helped us to stretch what we do with technology because we begin to realize that it's available. Yes?
Like my dad kind of told me, you know the thing in Star Trek, that flip phone he
Yep.
uses to signal
The communicator.
My dad told me when I watched this, I always thought, that's never gonna happen. And voila, you got flip phones.
Yep.
Now you got that phone.
Absolutely. Imagine someone who is not
That was
able,
fictional.
who's not able to travel because they're immobile. They're paralyzed, they have some other mobility issue. Think of where that can take them, that they would never have been able to go otherwise. One of you was mentioning the audiovisual, or the visual device up there. I think it was you in the front, was, so the piece up here? The camera, okay. All right. So you've got equipment like that. You've got the 3D printer. How many of you have heard of the 3D printers?
We have
Okay.
one
Okay.
at the high school.
We
Okay.
used one to print a prosthetic arm for a kid.
Okay.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing what can
How's
be
it
done.
not catch on fire?
We've had people print, I've seen them print a building with a concrete 3D printer, and I think it was just to prove it could be done. But we're just, again, new area of technology we're just beginning to expand on. We've still got space exploration. I talked a little bit about what we did with Apollo and Voyager before. Can you imagine what we could do with the technology we have now? I mean, the other stuff was, I think they redid this series MacGyver. It was very, very basic technology where we just put things together that we had. We have so much more to work with. And just imagine what lies out there that we don't know that we will learn when we start to apply the technology. Internet of Things. Have any of you been, do you have smart households like, you've got Simply Safe security system? If your parents have that, they can control it. You can control, Ring. Are you all familiar with the Ring technology? It looks like a doorbell, but your phone gets it wherever you are. And you can see who's at your door even if you're not home. We are starting to communicate, and our cell phones have made this, I think, possible, is we're communicating much more with the devices around us. And that expands even further. Got self-driving cars, which, depending on which company, we are going towards self-driving cars, and as much as those of us who drive cars now think it's an awful thought, in 20 years, when a large part of our population will be really ancient, we're gonna want self-driving cars, okay? I'm just saying. We took my mother's car away. I would be really happy if she had a self-driving car at this point. Smart cement. Can you imagine what a smart cement would do? Sure.
Reshape itself in order to make different blocks and structures for building or something.
Well, it's a good thought. We aren't there yet, but that might be something to invent. But you've got the right idea. We have cement out there now that has sensors in it that will, if you go by and you want to check the health of a bridge or a structure, and you can, and the cement will, these sensors will start to tell you when the cement is degrading. When it's time, in other words, when it's time to fix it. I like that reforming. All right, that definitely. Robotics. How many of you are afraid of robotics? How many of you are concerned about robotics?
Way in the future though, not like.
No. Okay, so we've always had a fascination with them. I mean, even before 1960s TV. But 1960s TV, we really started getting into robots big time. 1968, 2001, Space Odyssey, which was a classic. It had HAL, the computer, and man in space. Again, really basic technology as far as imagination. The 1977 Star Wars series, that first Star Wars series, which I'm sure if you've seen it, looks really low tech. But again, we started getting interested in intelligent robotic devices, which gets us to artificial intelligence. Okay, so AI is one of those areas that's going to be evolving more as you go through school and finish. We are getting to the point where we're teaching machines to learn for themselves. In other words, you teach a machine, you program a machine to observe and then think in terms of digitizing. Start to break down motions into rhythms and commands, the same way we write the commands for them now. And machines are we're getting to the point with our programming that the machines are beginning to be able to do that for themselves within algorithms that we write for them. We are teaching them to learn. Another thing that's kind of cool about machines, how many of you are familiar with IBM's Watson? Okay, especially if you've ever watched Jeopardy and watched it compete. All the knowledge that's been put in there. Think about that when you sit down to take a test and everything you studied the night before, because I know you all studied, the night before, but it just like goes out of your head for a minute. The machine doesn't have that problem. The machine just has to go search and pull the information back. So there's some really powerful activities going on with AI. It becomes a matter of how do we interact with these intelligent devices that we're creating. Okay, so when you go to technical, what can you do? Well, innovation, coming up with the idea, coming up with the reforming cement, okay? That's the 10%. There's still a lot of work that has to go into bringing it to reality. And these are some of the areas where you can work and actually bring them to reality. And actually I'm going to ask G to come up, and because you did a great job walking through your own experience and describing each of the areas.
All right. So the areas that we see here on the slide, these are different domains of how you can be part of the IT world, different roles you could play. Now, I'll try to tie it with an example we got from the earlier class. People were talking about online shopping. So let's consider we're talking about how do we apply information technology, or IT as we call it, in online shopping. How are the different roles related to each other? So the first role that comes in the picture is business analyst. What do they really do? They talk to the customer, the person who really wants the technology, and they ask them the right questions. So in case of online shopping, the questions would be, what kind of online shopping experience do you want? How many products do you want to show? Do you want to show 20 products on one page, or do you want to show it like 10 on the left, 10 on the right? All those kind of questions. That is what a business analyst would do. He would ask those questions. So me, speaking personally about me, I have been a business analyst when I started my career. It gave me a lot of opportunities to travel around the world, because the job is more like talking to people, understanding what they really want, asking the right questions, and then documenting it in a Word document that other people can understand. So I've been to Japan, I've been to Europe, of course I'm in US right now, been to India, a lot of different countries, and I'm sure you will find somebody in the IT who've been to every country in the world just doing IT. So it gives you tremendous opportunities to be all over the world. So that's another reason to be interested in information technology, all the different areas. Do you want me to tie back to the other
Sure.
roles too? Okay. So, and please feel free, if you have any questions, just bring them on. After business analysis, how does it really tie in all the different roles that we mentioned out here on the slide? Once you get those requirements together, like what does the customer really want in the document goes to a designer who will read it through, and then he'll ask you questions like, okay, you say 20 products, but you didn't tell me, do you need 4 pages? Do you need 5 pages? Do you want to click to go on different pages? Or do you just want it to swipe through or something like that? You know, you understand what I'm saying, right? So that is how you design the website. Then the third person will come in picture. He'll say, oh, I developed, now you've designed it. I'm gonna put together a code to actually make it happen, to have that website available for online shopping. That's what a developer does. Now once development is done, you want to make sure the right product has been built, the right website has been built. So there comes the testing team. What do they really do? They will run through the website, they'll see, is that really what was asked for? Is it actually 5 pages that were asked for, or is it 6 pages? Is it 5 pages with 4 products on each page, or 5 products, or 6 products, whatever. So the right number of specifications are being met. That is what the testing guys do. And that's how you see how different groups are flowing together to get the whole product out there in reality. So that's what IT is doing in different domains. So you could be a business analyst, you could be a developer, you could be a designer, you could be a tester, whatever works for you, whatever gets you most interested. And what does a project manager do, you would ask me. That's the one at the top right there. He or she oversees this whole function. He or she oversees the business analyst, the developer, the tester, the designer, all of those pieces. He puts them, if you may call it that way, he puts the puzzle together, all the pieces together with the timelines end to end. So that's pretty much what the IT world does in short, in like 1 minute.
Okay.
Over to Melody.
So when you have your project built, you go into a deployment where you actually make it commercially available, or if you're in a large company such as we are, we add it to the software that we already have going on. And deployment is a process in itself, and we have people who do nothing but manage deployments, which means they work all hours of the day and night. It's because we do our deployments at night, because you don't want to interrupt the technology during the day when you're moving something from a development system to an online system. We have to consider what happens if it doesn't really work when we get it to our, what we call the production system, the system that you work with every day. And we also have to consider disaster recovery and business continuity. What happens if the building burns? If there's a fire at the building and equipment is damaged? What happens if we have a major storm and there's a massive power outage? How do we reconfigure? Remember, CVS, the pharmacies, they're across the entire US. So if we have our technology housed in a couple of buildings, how do we maneuver to make sure that if we have a snowstorm in New England, that our California stores are still able to operate? Those are the types of things we.
We have a question here.
Can I go to the bathroom, please?
Oh, hey.
Yes, Ricky, go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
The other area of IT that isn't as obvious is security and hackers. Security and hackers are kind of tied together because hacking, if you are doing it legitimately, is actually a great part of security. You can build the most secure systems out there, and there are people who do nothing all day but try to break them. And they try to break them because they want to steal your data, transfer money. There can be any number of ways. But legitimate hackers, if you like the challenge of trying to break something and break through a vulnerability, a lot of companies will hire hackers to find out where their vulnerabilities are so they can fix them. It's another area of opportunity. All right. You have a computer science pathway program starting here. I would encourage you to check it out because that will be a great way to get some introduction and fundamentals in computer in technology areas and help you maybe decide if there's something there that might be interesting. At the very least, you're going to be dealing with technology all of your life. It's great to have some good discipline and fundamentals in there. So a lot of schools are moving into providing some technical foundations, more. Colleges, it's where do you want to go in your career? There is all kind of technology opportunity out there. As you go along, and you want to, say if you're going for an associate's degree, but you're not really sure what you want to do afterwards, and you start going out there for certifications. If you get out with your associate's degree and you're competing with someone with a bachelor's degree, but you're going for a job that requires an Amazon Web Services certification, and you have that, and the person with the 4-year degree doesn't, you're in an advantage. So certifications are something when you're looking at an area that you're interested in. Look for the certifications that you want to see, and get them. And starting somewhere. If you're not sure that if your family is not one where, if you're going to be the first one to go to college, or you think I can't afford to go to college, I don't know how we're going to do that, start somewhere. A lot of employers have tuition reimbursement plans. There are so many colleges out there that may seem unattainable that actually have a lot of subsidizing available for students who have talent. But the most important thing is don't give up on yourself. And we're going to go through that. So a couple of things I want to leave you with. As you're being taught a lot in your school career now, learn how to learn. Make sure you know how to go find information and how to answer besides just Google. So Google will give you the first 1,000 pages of Google responses will give you what people have paid for you to see a lot of times. So keep digging. Don't just take the easy answer. Be curious and ask questions. If you wonder how something works, if you wonder how something is done, ask the question. Imagine the possibilities. Again, 20 years ago, internet speeds nothing. The technology you have available to you now, the technology you have grown up with didn't even exist.
There's a lot of kids that say, talking about how it's changed in 20 years, I hear a lot of my kids saying, oh, I'm going to be a YouTube star when I grow up. That might not even be it anymore.
Right.
It's going to change in 20 years.
But if you're interested in that now, that may translate.
Yes.
I actually went to high school with a guy who liked to take pictures. He loved photography. When I ran into him at a high school reunion, he was working in the military using satellites to take images of Earth. So he says, I'm still taking pictures, but I'm taking pictures of the Earth. Go for your personal best. don't let what somebody else can do better than you hold you back ever. Because you know what, there is something you do that no one else does as well as you, and do the things you can, the best you can, and you always know, you always feel good about yourself. It doesn't matter, none of us are ever going to be the best or the worst at anything. But if we go for the best that we can do, we'll hold ourselves to the best standards. And in 20 years, maybe one of you will be standing up here talking to a group of students like you. And it'd be interesting for you to think back and say, how far have we come in 20 years? Thank you. Are there any questions? Well, go ahead and fill out your
If you
evaluations.
haven't finished your paper, you can give it to me later in the day, okay, because we need